We're living in a great age.
I want one of those.
I know where you can get one. You're not gonna like the price tag though.
I
Hey, I'm joined by who are you people? I haven't seen you all in forever. Who are these strangers in my Zoom meeting?
Oh, I know.
well, that's Amy right there.
And that's Tony
Hopefully,
right
it shows up the
there.
same way. So I'm joined by my hosts Amy and Tony, and we have not been together for a moment for
Yeah.
various reasons. Mostly, I want to say I don't want to blame the hurricane. Obviously, that's a reason, a part of a reason, but also just like academics and us being involved in the ways that we are. You know, even if we're not teachers, we have students or children or whatever. It's like August is just nuts,
Yeah.
and it just gets worse until like December, maybe after you're done playing your last sleigh ride.
For me, it's the end of October. When marching band season ends, then I have time again.
Well, this whole thing was drawn back even into July because I was in California for a while with the brass chamber music workshop.
Right?
Yeah.
So I
Talk
think
about-
I missed recording for that.
Yeah, back in July, right?
Let's talk about. So you went. So what? That was like a tour of sorts, or was that just in one location?
No, it's one location. It's 2 weeks. It's fantastic. So how it works is there are a number of coaches. So the euphonium coach for the first week was Gail Robertson, and then I was the coach for the second week for euphoniums. Most of the coaches are in the California area. A lot of people who work on down in Los Angeles. And so we have a number of coaches, and each day the participants are put into a new chamber ensemble. And so we consider things like obviously playing ability, but also personality and how the personality of the group is gonna work. Um, we think about somebody was in a trio yesterday, and we don't want to put them in another trio. And so then once we put them in groups, then the coaches all go to we think it's the largest brass chamber music library in the world. And we pull a whole bunch of music, probably like 8, 9, 10 pieces for the group. And they sight read it the next day. We coach them, they sight read through a whole bunch of music and settle on something to play that night. And then we kind of coach them um, throughout the day on putting it together. And there's usually a master class or a session on something related to performance. And in the afternoon, and then we eat dinner, and then there's like a workshop style performance. There will be no you will never see a recording on like YouTube or something, because recording in the workshop environment is strictly forbidden, because people do, groups do stop sometimes. Sometimes
Right.
they.
In one day, sure, why not?
Right, exactly. So it's a learning environment. And then after that performance, the coaches get together and switch everyone around again for the
I
next
have
day.
I have a question about that.
Yeah,
How do they audition their personality?
we get to know them.
Like,
So when they apply, they quote apply, but really they turn in their materials, and they have to have a few references. And so if somebody, and then we all get together and we figure out like, hey, this person, what are they like?
yeah,
And so that person is kind of the expert for like the first day until we get to know them a little bit better.
yeah,
If nobody has met this person, then we will frequently call one of the references and say, is this a outgoing person? Is this a shy person? How is this person sight reading? Are they kind of someone to jump in? Is it someone who's gonna need a little bit of extra support?
yeah.
And then we go off of that.
That's I think that's a unique aspect to it, because so much of chamber music is dealing with the people and the personalities that you have to deal with. Sometimes that's the bigger obstacle than actually playing the music.
It is.
It's like the same thing as making like a garage band back in high school. Like it's like the exact same thing. You know, it's you got to get along with the people because you're gonna end up hating each other because you're standing.
Get out of my garage.
So hey, Tony, what's going on in Triangle Land? What are y'all doing up there?
Well, we're back. Rehearsing. We started our season usually we start when the Wake County Public Schools start back, so it's the week before Labor Day. We are doing a little bit of a different season this year because normally we start off the season with the Pops concert that we do outside in Cary, and we're changing it up this year. We're not doing that. Historically, I always did that because, all the community groups around here start at the same time and they're all ready for their first big concert right at the beginning of November. So then the market is just saturated with performances at the beginning of November. So I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that cycle. So I switched to doing a concert right away in late September, early October, and then we'll do something in December. And this year, we had trouble getting a venue to perform at. Our regular venue wasn't available. So I was like, well, then we'll just, I'm not going to fight this battle. So I looked for a venue in November. So right before Thanksgiving, we're going to do our first concert, but we're doing a big concert. I did not know this at the time when I planned this concert, but the new series of The Crown is coming out in November. And I'm obviously a big fan of that. So I was doing a program called The Crown, and we're doing all music, British royalty, Hymn for Diana, the Plantagenets by Gregson, Henry V, Pastime with Good Company, which is written by Henry VIII, allegedly, Crown Imperial, Pomp and Circumstance, Jerusalem, all the greatest hits. And then the Queen died. And I didn't know about that. I did not plan for that. I had nothing to do with it. I did not do that to promote our concert.
That's exactly what somebody who had something to do with it would say.
We'll never. I did make it seem like it was natural causes of old age.
She's so old, they'll never know.
But it was, but that, that's just a little bit of, we started off with that. And kind of the reason that I went this direction, especially doing Henry V and Plantagenets. Plantagenets is a little bit more difficult piece for us. And we don't usually do, our first concert of the year with heavy repertoire like this to kind of ease into the season. But, we're jumping up to the first section this year. So we're, over the years, we have played pieces like Year of the Dragon and Harrison's Dream and, top literature, Paganini variations, but we've never competed with that because those pieces stretch the band just a little bit. But this year we're pushing ourselves to compete in the first section with Year of the Dragon and a comparable choice piece. So I figured, throwing something like Plantagenets in front of them early in the season would probably be a good, warm up for that. So that's what we're kind of working on right now. And things are going well. The band's going really well. The band's vibe is good. And, we're really excited to keep moving forward after our success in the last couple of years of competing in the third section.
It's a lot of good moves for y'all.
What have you been up to, Aaron, other than hurricane stuff?
Honestly, we're very lucky. Hurricane didn't really do much other than just give me a reason to use a saw to take care of some downed limbs and stuff like that. We're doing good, though. We've got our first concert of the season for Tampa later this month, and we actually do the opposite of what you were talking about, Tony. We always hit really hard with the opening, and then we essentially have like a 5 rehearsal concert cycle to get into our winter concert, which is funny because like the fall concert does not pay the bills. It's the holiday concert, and we just play, cheese, and but yeah, getting the youth brass band ready. That's the big project right now. We're gonna start second after FMEA, so second week of January or something like that. We're gonna get them going. We're gonna try to do 2 concerts. We're doing a joint concert with the big boy band, and then they're gonna do their own concert by themselves. Yeah, and then we're gonna establish, because you guys know, I mean, the percussion parts for youth brass band stuff isn't really necessarily something that I need a bunch of all-state kids to sit around with. So we're probably gonna also start a percussion ensemble that we may or may not take to competition, just to give them something else to do.
Yeah,
We're just going here.
Yeah, we do a percussion ensemble component with our youth bands as well, just to kind of give them more opportunity to play, mostly to attract the better players to do that.
Bingo.
Our youth bands did their auditions yesterday, and they'll start up in November. As soon as the marching season's over, they crank right up with their rehearsals. So
nice.
Yeah,
there's no
a lot of brass banding going on around here right now. Or soon.
Yeah, so speaking of a lot of brass banding, we've talked on this particular podcast almost ad nauseum about the North American Championships. But there's a lot of regional events that are either starting up or restarting up or going on this year. We've got one in November, February, March, 2 in March, and 1 in May. And they're all over. So the big one coming up right around the corner, which we talked a little bit with Chris about earlier, I think, correct? That was the U.S. Open, which has been established, has been a thing, but the moving of the locations is a big deal. And I think it's his first year back, correct? Post-COVID?
No, they did the event last year in Kansas City.
Okay, yeah.
Or somewhere in Kansas. And then it's moved to Detroit. It is an entertainment style contest. The U.S. Open's been going for almost 20 years, I believe. It's gone for a while. So hopefully it's found a permanent home in Detroit. But they just announced the last week or so that they have David King coming over to do sessions. Yeah, I think either with bands or with individuals who want help leading a band or playing cornet or anything. So that's pretty exciting. That's a big draw for that, I think. Is have David King over for it.
Have either of you ever done that competition before or been to it?
No. I have with Atlantic. And we we competed when Fountain City had won, and they went over to play in Brass and Concert because that happens about the same time. So then we found out that Fountain City wasn't competing in the Open, and so we were like, wow, we'll just slide right on in there.
Well, it's pretty much the same vibe, right? I mean, so anybody who may not know, like a lot of times with competitions, you get choice and test piece, maybe just a test piece. But with the entertainment styles, it's kind of like you make a program up to a certain time, and typically like I'll have a theme. It reminds me, I know it's not the same thing, but it reminds me a lot of like the competitive marching band circuit in terms of like picking a theme and playing a show and putting that out there. Very different in terms of like that, but it's kind of the same idea of structure.
Well, I mean, it's an entertainment contest, and entertainment is not defined. What is entertaining? That's kind of the $64,000 question. But it is similar to the brass and concert format, where you have an open slate to do anything that you think is going to be entertaining, and then you have to convince judges that it's entertaining through performance, whatever. I'm actually a judge for the U.S. Open this year because I'm really honored to be selected to do that. But NABBA is working very hard to partner with these regional events to help develop a bigger brass band adjudication pool in North America, rather than hiring people from Europe to come over here, which is extremely expensive. But we want to have our own judges. We're also developing a more reliable adjudication system that we want to use with all of these regional events and the championships, so the same standard can be applied to all brass band events all the time, which would just, over time will help bands develop and progress and get better, just much the ways that drum corps and marching bands have over the years, because there's been the same standard of adjudication across the board for all of those events. So, so I'll be judging that one. I'm really looking forward to it. but they're still figuring out exactly, what manner the entertainment part of the adjudication is going to be. But I have a pretty good idea how we're going to do it. But that's the X factor in there, is like figuring out what entertainment is.
Yeah, we did a bit that was funny, and I think that putting humor into a show has to be like the hardest thing, because sitting there and like doing it over and over again and thinking, is this funny? I think it's funny because I came up with it, but as you're doing it, you know what I mean? But as you're doing a run through of it, like for the 50th time or whatever, like, is it funny?
Funny.
Is it funny? And then we kept on like we kept on bringing people in to see what their reaction is, but then
Yeah.
I think they feel pressured to laugh because they know that they've been brought in,
Right.
you know.
Laugh here.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember being on stage as these guys are, because they were playing the Swan, which is such like a beautiful piece, and they're playing it on handbells as the band accompanied. But instead of just playing it as you expect, they're fighting over the handbells.
That's kind of funny.
Did they let the handles make noise while they were fighting over them too?
No, so it has to be like they have to be silent, but they're like bashing each other as trying to, you took, because like they're acting out, you took my handbell, you took my handbell, and then the one guy runs all the way from the one side to the other side to grab the one handbell at the end, go.
That actually sounds like a funny premise to begin with.
So when we were on stage playing it, it was the greatest thing to actually hear people in the audience start to laugh. I'm like, oh, we did it. But humor is tough.
Humor is tough, but I don't think that humor is the only entertainment factor.
Right.
I do believe that playing good music well is entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an element of excellence that has to be involved in it as well. The two things aren't mutually exclusive. For a long time, people in the brass band world thought entertainment was dressing up in costumes and doing choreography and staging and all this stuff, and that made it entertaining. But then they go out and they wouldn't play very well because they're doing the costumes and the choreography and stuff. And it's like, well, you lost the effect of the entertainment because you're not doing it well. So it's a tricky thing to put all those things together. But it's going to be interesting to see when you have an open page for the style of contest, what people will come up, what kind of creativity people will come up with to put a production together that they feel will be competitively successful in an entertainment contest. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
And it's my impression right now, just looking at the ones that that are listed on the NABBA, because NABBA does have all of these regionals listed if you want to find them, and I'll put them in various descriptions. But that seems to be the only entertainment concert or a contest right now that I'm finding that we have.
The NABBA's partnership with, but I do believe that Fountain City is starting an entertainment contest out for the western part in Kansas City. I don't have a lot of details about that, so I don't really know a lot, but I do know that they're doing an event out there.
And then we've got a handful of festivals, and festivals are great just in terms of, I think, the fellowship of the brass bands, especially, just going and seeing everybody. And, it's kind of nice, especially if it's like one of your first things and you're trying to feel out what you're going to be doing, it genuinely, as a band that went to NABBA for the first time, and a lot of my band saw a brass band for the first time at NABBA, that's a very stressful situation to enjoy the medium initially. And I feel like these festivals take the edge off of that a little bit, as well as just let you play your program or a program that you're working on in a spot for new people.
Yeah, and I think the key difference between a festival and a competition is in the festival, there's performances, and there could be evaluators that are listening and providing feedback, but they just don't write down point. You don't play for points and for winners and losers, or placements. And I know that the partnerships that we're getting in with Mid Atlantic and with the Canadian festival is education is really a big part of their philosophy with that. So they have a lot of clinics and master classes in addition to the performances, so that the participants really learn a lot as well as get the opportunity to perform and be evaluated. So and I think that's something that's really really needed and really interesting, for this area. And then we have a couple of actual competitions. DFOB, Dublin Festival of Brass, and Gateway are actual competitions that are kind of gear ups for the championships. And those do have adjudication and placements as well.
Yeah, and Gateway actually mentions that on their website. They actually mentioned that their judges will be like NABBA certified, or like be from NABBA essentially.
Yeah, one of the things we try to do with NABBA is that all the judges, or as many of the judges that we can schedule that are doing championships, are going to be judging a regional or evaluating in a regional festival or something, just so that they get some hands-on practical experience with the scoring system, the judging, the approach, the philosophy, and the technology that we use to judge the championship. So
that Dublin one's about a month out, a month before NABBA happens, about, give or take.
Yeah, Gateway and DFOB are in March.
And there was some things, right? It was ours being our first trip. There was some stuff that was like there was a group breath that our director put in that wasn't written in the music, that they put in for an effect, and we all liked, and we executed on. And I know we executed on it because all three judges that we had hated it. So I know we did it well because they all knew it was there. However, every single, and none of them like, okay, I'm being aggressive with the hated it, but all three of them said, oh, I don't think you needed that there, or something along those lines. And if we knew that, we would have just not done that, and just an event like this really helps clean that out a little bit. When you're thinking about those things.
Yeah, I mean that's eventually the goal, is that like by partnering up with the regionals, we serve several functions. One is that the geography creates significant issues for bands to get to the championships. So having an event that's near them can keep them involved in doing what brass bands do, which is participate in competitions and festivals, and hearing and working with other groups. But it also gives them a chance to play for the evaluation that's going to be similar to what they're going to be getting at the championships. And any feedback that they get from that could be useful to helping them, refine their performance for the championships. It's a little bit different than in Great Britain, because their regionals are a completely different piece than their finals. They completely change repertoire for that, but over here you won't have to do that. You can play the same music. You can change pieces if you want to, but you can play the same music. And one of the things we do with the adjudication pool is that we very carefully work with the judges to have them kind of not pay attention to the brass band world. So if they judge a regional that's in the blind, and then they're out of the building. If they're judging championships, they're out of the building, so they really don't know who's on stage. So that if they hear that same piece again at championships, they'll have no idea who's doing it. Just protecting the anonymity of the bands is something that we work really hard to maintain with the judging pool.
I think another way that it's different from over in the UK is that the people who have come over, at least to the Mid-Atlantic Brass Band Festival, have almost always commented on how unique it is that Americans are okay with putting a not quite finished product out there in these festivals, like Dublin Festival of Brass, Mid-Atlantic Brass Band Festival, the ones that come before NABBA. Everyone is aware that it's pretty polished, but it is not quite the final product because we still have like a month or so to go. And so the Brits have all said, I think that this is a great idea. Just I just don't think that it would fly in the UK because no one would want to put out that almost polished product, that almost polished performance out there. And then to get feedback on it,
to get better.
To get
because
better.
They have another month.
Yeah. And the Mid-Atlantic Brass Band Festival usually has a few clinicians that come in. We've had some great ones come in. And so these bands, after they perform, that's not the end of the festival. They go into a room and they have an hour with each of the clinicians, and they give their feedback and they kind of rehearse the bands, and so they can go back for that final month and have their list of what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, it's also interesting because American bands prepare for the competition and championships very differently than bands over, at least the championship section bands. When you go to the finals over there, you work on that music for the 2 weeks leading up to that. But, prior to that, they're doing other concerts and the British Open and stuff. Bands over here will be working on that music from January to April on a weekly basis, not just in the 2 intense weeks. And some bands, even in October or at the beginning of the season, they'll start digging into that music. The process of preparing for contest is a month-long process, not a daily process. So there is a growth period from when you do an early contest to the championships. It's a growing thing.
Yeah, and so we've got, just so we kind of thrown a lot of details out there just so everybody knows what we're talking about and when everything's happening. I'm just gonna throw them out there just so everyone knows what we're talking about, because we're popcorning a bunch of names and wheres and all that sort of thing. So we have the US Open, and that's technically in Clarkston, Michigan. That's happening November 19th. Then we've got the Mid-Atlantic Brass Band Festival. That's February 11 through 12. That's in New Jersey, Glassboro. Gateway Festival, March 18, and that's in St. Louis, Missouri. Dublin Brass Band Festival, Dublin, Ohio. That's March 25th. And the Great Canadian Brass Band Festival, May 12th through 20th. That's at the University of Toronto, I assume in Toronto. I don't know. The University of Miami is not in Miami, so.
There's one in Miami, though.
It's in Coral Gables.
Oh, right. Yeah, I guess so. There's another Miami University that's in Ohio, so.
Right.
Something Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know. But speaking of competitions, there's been a huge adjustment with the North American Brass Band Festival or Championship, in terms of the scheduling. Scheduling is very different because of some things that changed. Primarily, what's going on with the first and second section in terms of when they play their stuff.
Yeah, the contest committee decided that it would, with the level of repertoire that the bands are playing. Much the same as the championship section, where they do their choice piece and test piece on separate days. The first and second sections are also going to be performing their choice and test pieces on separate days as well, on Friday and Saturday. The third section and youth section and open sections they'll still perform their programs in their entirety on the same day. But the other sections are going to be split up, and hopefully it'll be an adjustment for those bands, but hopefully it'll be a welcome adjustment as they learn how to deal with the weekend in 2 performance steps rather than 1, but with fresh chops for both performances. So hopefully the logistics that the bands have to go through to figure that out will be worth it, and the results of the performance will be much higher.
Heck, it even changes how you rehearse and prepare.
It will.
I mean, I don't know about your group, Amy, but we were really working on the last 2 weeks of face on horn, face on horn, face on horn, just to get ready for that. And now we should get to look at some music for more, and work on that sort of thing.
It was, I have to say, I'm excited about this because even though I've played a lot of first section type music, I hadn't gone to a competition in first section. At least in the US. And so to play those two pieces in a row up on stage on a corner chair, my part had the same range as the championship section pieces. Um, and that was an experience because I had to pace myself, and I have to say I couldn't 100% go for it. I had to back off on some dynamics. I had to back off on a few things just to save myself for that second piece. And so I am excited because I feel like I'm not going to have to pace myself as much because we're just going to have the one piece in the one day. And then, after doing that with championship, because championship used to be both back to back.
2010 was the last year that they did that.
Yeah. And going through that process with championship, I see, we all saw how great that was and how it boosted our performance level. So I'm excited to see what happens with first section and second section, because I think that it will boost the performance level.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think if it weren't for the pandemic, the board probably would have done this 2 years ago. We've been discussing this
and moving locations too.
Yeah, for a long time.
Logistics.
But there are lots of, in addition to the performance aspects of it, there's some logistical things that'll make it better for bands. This will allow us to put more people in the stage in the concert hall. So now the second section will at least get the split time in the concert hall and the playhouse rather than, having to play their entire program in the playhouse. So the idea is to get as many bands as possible into the really nice hall. And this will allow us to do that. And another thing that's going to be really good is it'll help the adjudication a lot by separating those two parts of the program. Because human nature influences the test piece score influences the choice piece score because those things are done back to back. So separating those two things on different days means that the judges are going to be doing a completely separate contest, as it should be because of the weighting. And what we're doing for the other sections that do their program together is that we are stopping when the test piece is done. There's going to be a pause on, until the judges finish adjudicating the test piece. They're going to close the book on that and then start again for the choice piece. So they have to record their scores and be done with the test piece 100% before we move on to the choice piece. Now they have to do it quickly, which isn't ideal, but making sure that we are making an attempt to let the judges know that these are two separate contests between choice and test. And you have to write down your number, lock it in, and then we move on to the choice piece. And then they do that evaluation separately. But it's just going to be a lot easier for the first, second, and championship sections because they're on separate days. So all of those things will make sense, and hopefully make the performances better, the results more reliable, and everybody happier.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the glance of the schedule, which is not, it's on the website, but it's not like the intensity that you and I know that are existing in this. And it's just like a freaking logistical miracle. Because if you look at this 2-day event, solo and ensemble on Friday, not to mention the board meeting the day before, but there's solo and ensemble on Friday starts at 8 and pretty much will hard stop at 1 because the first section starts and goes until like 9:40 is when the next thing starts. So you've got a schedule from 8 to essentially 10:30, 11, nonstop. Go to bed, wake up, 8 a.m. we're hitting you again with some youth band, and then going straight again until 10:30, 11 again, right? And just to be able to pack all the different sections and all the different events and all that sort of a thing into one thing is, I'm glad I'm not on that committee. To have to plan that.
Well, I am on that committee, and it is tough. And not only that, but you have to, try to adjust things. I mean, we learned things from this year's contest. We're going to be moving things around to make everybody that's there performing has a better experience this year than last year. Um, but it's tough. There's way too much stuff packed into the weekend, and it all has to be there. So the thing to remember is that until we have all the entries in January, the times the time schedule will change, based on the bands that enter and the solos and ensembles that enter. We're hoping that we have enough space in the time frame to do everybody that to listen to everybody that comes in and that enters. But if we have a certain number of people, we may start at 9 o'clock for the solo ensemble instead of 8 o'clock. We may end at 11:30. It just depends on how many people enter for each section or category. But we do have plans for how to get the most people to perform as possible. But it's logistically very difficult to get all of this stuff in.
Yep. And again, I'm not envious of the people who have to do that. I just get to enjoy all the fun, and then I get to like talk to Amy backstage before she. Oh wait, no, I don't get to talk to Amy because she ignored me entirely before.
Oh, nice. He wasn't even awake. What are you talking about?
To be totally honest, I ignore everyone before I go on stage. I go into my own little world. Everyone, if you're listening, if you're backstage with me, I mean, weird. No offense. I just don't talk to people. I go into my own little corner and I kind of close my eyes and relax. I'm not I have this theory that some people like talking to others before they go on stage to like distract themselves. And some people like retreat into themselves before they go on stage. And I am definitely one of those like retreat into themselves type person. So I try to be as polite as possible, but I'm like, listen, I really don't want to talk right now. I will talk to you after, but before that's me. So when we were in Atlantic, we used to know like who wanted to talk and joke around to like distract themselves and stay relaxed, and who like to like meditate and be on their own. And we used to divide into like two different groups backstage, so the jokers and like the solitary people.
Introvert stage left, extrovert stage right.
Exactly. That was exactly how it was, because like we wanted to make sure that everyone got what they needed before we went on stage, but having them mingle was the worst idea ever. So if anyone is backstage with me, I promise you I am a pleasant person, but just don't try to like talk to me right before I go on stage.
Yeah. I think the weirdest thing is going to be figuring out, because you're used to when you do your program in its entirety, your band is in the warm-up area for at least a half hour, sometimes even a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to be in there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Which for my group, that's great, because I thought we were in a warm-up for way too long. Right, we could have gone in, played a hymn, and then left, and that's the personality of my band. But other bands are not that way. Other bands want essentially a half-hour rehearsal before they go on stage, and you've got everything in between, and so it is going to be an adjustment. Can I help you?
We have a cat on screen for those of you who are listening. Hello, kitty.
Our special guest.
The tiny terror that is. Well, hey guys, it's been really good getting to actually like sit down and chat again for the first time, and it feels like forever.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
Stop being busy, everyone. Got it. I'll work on that.
Sure. I'll just stop everything. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not gonna do a question of the week, because I feel like this entire thing was questions of the week. So that's the way this whole thing was. We definitely didn't get to talk about as many things with all these various competitions, and I'm sure especially with NABBA we'll have more to discuss leading up to it as we get closer to it, and as we get some more information that's publicly out and all that sort of thing. So but yeah, thank you guys so much for chatting with me this morning. Missed it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next time.